Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive, high-stakes scenario, the August 2026 Operation Black Hawk drug bust. It's a literal masterclass in the tension between catching criminals efficiently and, well, actually upholding the law and constitutional rights. Let's get right into it. We've got a lot of ground to cover today. We'll start with the gritty, true crime facts of the sting, then unpack the massive ethical dilemmas and constitutional laws at play. We'll even bring in some heavy-hitting philosophers like Kant and Beccaria, run through a high-pressure case study, and wrap it all up into a perfect 10-marker model answer for your exams.
All right, first up, let's lay out exactly what went down on the ground during this operation. 18.64 kilograms. That is a staggering amount of crude heroin, and that's exactly what was seized near Lucknow overnight on August 24th and 25th, 2026. This wasn't some random traffic stop either. It was a highly coordinated joint operation pulled off by the UP and MP units of the Central Bureau of Narcotics, or the CBN.
The way they pulled this off is a textbook example of intelligence-led policing. The team was tracking an Assam-registered vehicle on the Sultanpur-Lucknow highway, and they noticed a massive red flag. The occupants claimed they'd stopped for fuel 4 times in just 500 kilometers. I mean, that math just doesn't add up, right? So officers searched the car and found a specially fabricated compartment hiding over 16 kilos right in the fuel tank, with the rest stashed in a secondary truck. 3 guys were immediately arrested under the strict NDPS Act of 1985.
Now, as wild as those facts are, an operation like this immediately thrusts us into some really heavy ethical territory.
It all boils down to balancing 2 massive, competing forces. On one hand, you have operational efficiency. We want fast, intelligence-based action for our immediate security, exactly what Operation Black Hawk delivered. But on the flip side, you have due process. We absolutely need fair, evidence-based, rights-respecting legal procedures. I mean, a lightning-fast bust looks great on the news, but if it's arbitrary or cuts legal corners, it completely destroys the institutional credibility of the justice system over the long haul. And there's an extra layer of ethical burden here for investigators, especially when they're talking to the media. They have to isolate individual guilt purely based on evidence. What they absolutely cannot do is fall into the trap of collective stereotyping, like assuming guilt by association just because suspects are from a certain region or community. On top of that, the state has to juggle deterrence, striking fear into networks, with the real goal of rehabilitation. We don't want the pursuit of justice to accidentally create marginalized, resentful communities. So, to prevent those kinds of ethical disasters, operations like Black Hawk are bound by a very rigid constitutional framework. These constitutional pillars are totally non-negotiable. Article 21 guarantees the right to life and liberty, which firmly includes the presumption of innocence and a fair trial. Then you've got Article 22 protecting folks against arbitrary arrest and guaranteeing access to legal counsel. And here's the kicker. Even under the NDPS Act of 1985, which is notoriously strict on drug trafficking, these procedural safeguards are baked right in. You simply cannot bypass constitutional rights in the name of efficiency.
What's actually fascinating here is that the backbone of these modern constitutional safeguards was laid out centuries ago by some major philosophical thinkers. First up, let's look at Kautilya's concept of Dandaniti from the Arthashastra. Kautilya argued that the state's power to punish has to be perfectly balanced. It can't be excessively harsh, but it can't be a slap on the wrist either. Most importantly, it must be completely objective and strictly evidence-based. It's basically a timeless warning to law enforcement. Do not rush for a quick, flashy win if you don't have the hard evidence to back it up.
Fast forward to Cesare Beccaria, the father of modern criminal jurisprudence. He brought us the principle of proportionality. Beccaria made this brilliant point that the certainty of a punishment deters crime way better than the severity of it. But for punishment to be certain, the legal process has to be flawless. So every single accused person absolutely deserves due process, period. And finally, Immanuel Kant's theory of human dignity. Kant famously said that every individual is an end in themselves and never merely a means to an end. In the context of a drug bust, that means you literally cannot use a low-level suspect just as a convenient tool to catch a bigger boss. Doing that fundamentally violates their human worth.
Okay, let's take all this theory and put it into practice with a high-pressure, real-world scenario. Let's look at the approver dilemma. Put yourself in the shoes of the lead CBN officer for a second. One of the three guys you just arrested with those 18 kilos of heroin says, "Hey, I'm just the driver." He offers you a deal. Drop all his charges, let him become an approver, and he'll hand over the massive kingpin running the whole show. Now, the media is breathing down your neck for a major win. But here's the problem. You have literally zero independent evidence to back up his story. Just his word, which he's giving you while terrified and in handcuffs. You're basically staring down three options here, and they perfectly highlight the friction we've been talking about. Option 1, accept the deal immediately. The upside? Super fast results, and the media loves you. The downside, you're totally violating Kant and Beccaria, and there's a massive risk you're just framing an innocent person. Option 2, reject it completely. It's safe, it's objective, but man is it slow. Plus, you might just lose your only ticket to catching the real kingpin. Then there's option 3, use his statement as a starting lead. And frankly, option 3 is the only right way to go. You don't treat the approver's word as gospel, but you definitely use it as a lead. You absolutely demand solid, independent, scientific evidence before making a move. We're talking call records, financial trails, independent witnesses. This is the sweet spot. It balances operational efficiency with human rights, honoring both Kautilya's demand for hard evidence and Kant's absolute respect for due process. So, how do we package all of this into a high-scoring exam response? Let's break down a perfect 10-marker model answer. If your prompt is about balancing efficiency and due process, you want to come out swinging in your introduction. Immediately establish the state's dual duty. Say that law enforcement must tackle organized crime swiftly, but efficiency that sacrifices due process just destroys institutional credibility. And drop Beccaria right there in the intro. Anchor your whole argument on his idea that the certainty of justice outweighs mere speed. Then, for your body paragraph, you want to effortlessly blend the hard facts with the philosophy. Bring up Operation Blackhawk. Point out that seizing 18.64 kilos of heroin based on intelligence was a massive win for efficiency. But pivot right to Kant's human dignity principle, arguing that no matter how severe the drug crime, the accused right to a fair, unbiased investigation has to remain intact. You can bring it all home with a powerful concluding thought, something like, a strong law enforcement system is one that simultaneously enforces strictness against crime and protects civil rights. Boom! That proves to the examiner that efficiency and due process aren't enemies at all. They are partners in real justice. Before we wrap this explainer up, I want to quickly call out a few common analytical traps you should absolutely avoid. First, don't fall into the trap of praising a fast bust while completely ignoring the legal rights of the accused. Second, don't just blindly praise the approver system. You've got to acknowledge the huge ethical risks of coercion there. And finally, never ignore the danger of collective stereotyping. Guilt by association is toxic to innocent communities and ruins public trust. I'm going to leave you with a final, slightly provocative question to chew on. When the state trades criminal immunity for information, is the approver system morally justified because it catches the bigger fish? Or is it a fundamental compromise of the exact justice it's supposed to uphold? Think about Kant, think about Beccaria, and weigh that out for yourself. Thanks so much for tuning in to this explainer, and keep questioning the frameworks around you.